Hello, and welcome to this episode of The Financial Translator, where we discuss financial topics in layman's terms to move you from confusion to confidence on a given topic. I am your host, Kirk Kreckmeyer, the Principal Advisor at Pebble Valley Wealth Management. We are a fee-only financial advisory firm helping our clients make informed decisions on their road toward financial security. You can find more information at pvwealthmgt.com. Welcome to episode 100. We started our first podcast back in January of 2022, and here we are in March of 2026 and still going strong. A quick shout out to the strong, focused women who all made it possible. Looking over to Bree right over here, she definitely made it all possible. She takes my ramblings and my splices and delivers it to you. So first and foremost, shout out to Bree. And she also joined me, the video podcast we started recently. She joined me and Allie joined as well, so shout out to them. Shout out to Kate. She created our first intro and outro sessions way back before we even started. Stefania, back in her winter break of 2021, that would have been, she got our podcast going. And then most recently, Maura, shout out to Maura for the summer intern of 2025 to get the videos going. So anyway, here we are. Thanks for staying with me. And let's keep on going. Another 100. We'll see. They're all great podcasts, I believe, but I do have a few of my favorites. So I was looking back on this 100th episode. Again, encouraged to listen to them all. But episode 74, I talk about the financial framework for new hires. And so that was one that's a good evergreen product, if you will, for those starting out. Episode 82, it's kind of wonky, but I give an annual update of the Social Security financing. Very wonky. I did a paper on it back in college in 1985 or 86, back in the days. A little fondness there. And then a couple of, on the more personal level, my very first time we published, episode 22 was Father Forgets. So it's a poem that we read and we republish every Christmas, which is a nice one. And then more recently, episode 88 was a summary of my 60th birthday. Can't age myself. Last fall. So family got together. Had some pictures and some memories of our trip to Colorado. So anyway, those are a few of my favorites, but check them out and create your own and let me know which ones you like or how you could, any improvements that you think we should make. So enough of that. We also might have noticed we're opening our windows here. It's a nice sunny day in Chicago recording this on March 19th. Tomorrow is the first day of spring. So if you hear some noise in the background, it's the fresh air carrying over us here. So on today's show, I am going to provide an overview of the Trump accounts and if you should open one or not. We also provide this information on the blog post, and we got one graph this time on the blog post that will show as well on those watching the video here. As a brief legal disclaimer, our discussions here should not be construed as financial or investment advice, and each person's situation is unique. All right, let's go. The title of my blog post and this video, this podcast here is, Should I Open a Trump Account? This is accounts that were announced with part of the OBA, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act that was passed in July of 2025. When I first heard about them, it's like, free money, always take the free money. So in general, I always thought, if your kids were born between January of 25 and December of 28, go ahead and open them, get the $1,000 from the Treasury, but otherwise probably have better choices to contribute new monies. That was my summary. And we had taken a few questions recently about it. And so it's like, oh, yep, do that. And then somebody else asked again and brought up a few other issues. And so I decided to do a deep dive, provide a summary. And in general, I still believe overall that if you have some free money coming, which I'll explain, go ahead and open them. But definitely, I still believe for new contributions, for the majority of the people, it's not going to make sense. And so that's my belief, but there's some more nuances here than I realized when I sat down to start writing this yesterday. Quite a bit here, so hopefully you enjoy it, and let's jump in. I'm using a Q&A format for today's podcast, and so I'll read the question and I'll give you a brief summary of each. So question one, who is eligible and how do I open them? How is it done? So any child who has a Social Security number and is going to be under the age of 18 by the end of the year that the account is opened is eligible to open these accounts. So you have to have, again, basically under age 18, have a valid Social Security number, a U.S. citizen, you can open these accounts. So anybody can do it. Obviously, if it's for a child under age 18, it's a custodial account. You have to have an adult doing it, but those can be opened. How do you do it? So you can do it one of two ways, at least that I'm aware of. One is you go to trumpaccounts.gov and you complete this form 4547 electronically, just a few basic questions, or while you're filling out your tax return, form 4547 is an option apparently this year where you can click on it and again, fill out the information. So it's going to open up or get the account opened, but I guess in their systems. And so later on, you'll be notified which custodian is going to handle it and how to finalize the account setups. No new money's going in now. You can't start contributing now, but you can at least get the accounts at the ready so that you can be ready to start taking in money or depositing money on July 4th of 2026. Question number 2, who qualifies for this magical $1,000 from the Treasury? And are there any other additional programs? You may have heard a couple of $250 programs. So for the $1,000 Treasury contribution, again, in order to, you have to have a Trump account opened. And so if you don't open the Trump account, you're not going to get it, even if a child was born in this age band. So have a Social Security number, open a Trump account, and the child has to be born between 1/1 of 2025 and 12/31 of 2028. So there's, goes for a few years here. So if the child is born in that age range and you open the account, the Treasury will automatically, presumably on July the 4th, will contribute the $1,000 into that account. You also may have heard there's a few individual donors announcing programs. And so the first one announced was Michael and Susan Dell. They announced a $6.25 billion with a B program that is going to contribute up to $250 to Trump accounts, but it applies to those children born before 1/1/2025. So it's a way to those who don't qualify for the $1,000. They want to encourage the savings. And so the details, as I understand it, are 1, you still have to have a Trump account open. So you got to do it if you want that money. 2, child born before 1/1/25, but still under the age of 10. So I guess throughout the year, do the math, I guess 2015 or later birthday. And 3, they wanted to focus the money toward lower income areas. So they've defined it as a zip code where you live. If your median income is below 150,000, then you qualify. So those 3 things, if you qualify, as I understand it, as they implement it, you will be eligible to get that $250 from the Dell Foundation or whatever it's called. And check out your zip codes, depending upon how large your town is, what the average income is. But you'd be surprised. There's some, check your zip code. So the median income, a lot of them apply. So it's worth checking out. Another program that was announced, Ray Dalio, former hedge fund manager, announced a program for the residents of Connecticut. And that's a state-specific one. Basically, he is following the Dell criteria, but his was defined as he will match the Dell nationwide program for the Connecticut residents. And so if you're a Connecticut resident and you fit those parameters, you could get up to $500 between those 2 programs. And then there's also some employers announcing they're going to match the Treasury $1,000. So by definition, you have to qualify for the Treasury thing. So I won't bore you with those details again, but that's going on. And again, it's worth watching, will there be more state programs announced? Watch that. Or will there be more employer programs announced? And so I'm going to talk about taxes in a bit here, but anyway, it's worth looking at. So again, I thought it was just $1,000 before those ages. Otherwise, don't bother. Now with these other programs, it applies to more people. So it's worth looking at and seeing if it makes sense for you to open that account, which is a requirement to get some of this free money. And it was just a quick, I guess this was years ago, probably 15, 20 years ago now, with the book, A Millionaire Next Door. There was a quote in there, one of the no-frills guy that was interviewed as a millionaire next door. You wouldn't expect him. He was invited to some party and he asked, what kind of beer do you like? And he goes, I like Budweiser and free. So my advice here is take the free. So you got some free money. If you qualify for what I described, go ahead and grab it. Question number 3, can I put or others put additional money into here? So let's say you don't qualify for what I just described. Can you open one up and put money in? The answer is yes. Now, should you? I'll get into that in a second, but the answer is yes. You can open an account at age 18 by the end of the year. And individuals or parents or relatives or friends, great friends if they do that, they can put up to $5,000 a year into this account up to age 18. So they can do that. Employers can also contribute up to $2,500, but that does count toward the $5,000. So if your employer is kicking money in, then you could only do $2,500. But that is the amount that you could put in. Again, should you? We'll get into that. And again, they do stop at age 18, but unlike maybe say a minor Roth IRA, for example, they don't need any income to do this. And so between now and age 18, even with no income, you can put money in. Question 4, what are the investment options? Very limited. So by design, they want to keep this simple, low cost, and invest in America, invest in the U.S. equities. And so you only have, as it's written, it has to be, the investment choice has to be a mutual fund or exchange traded fund, all U.S. equities with an expense ratio of 0.10% or lower is what qualifies. So that's good news for the long-term investor. Definitely it's diversified in the U.S. equity sense. You're not buying just one company, but it's definitely not diversified in the traditional sense. It's not you don't have international equities, bonds, cash, et cetera. The one thing, so that's what it is. Again, just take it. But one thing it doesn't allow you to do, though, is change the allocation, or I'll talk about how the withdrawals will work later. Let's say you plan on using the funds as the child is approaching age 18. After the 18 is before they can do it. You have no choice of dialing back the risk. And so as it stands today, I expect they'll be making changes over time. Follow it. I suspect they'll change it. But again, as it's written today, you cannot, the only thing you can do is 100% U.S. equity or not. So, maybe they'll follow the program of like the thrift savings program, the TSP program for government employees, 401k plans. They have 5 choices. And so it wouldn't surprise me if they go to a model like that to give people more choice. And we got some sirens in the background, but we're keeping it real this time on episode 100, right, Bree? We're all good. No, you're fine. We're good. Question number 6, how large could these accounts grow? Is it worth it if I only plan to do the deposit? Let's say you only qualify for this $250 deposit from the Dell program. So is it worth it? And how much will it grow? It's going to grow more than you think. So I'm showing a graph on the video showing a table of different accumulated values depending upon when you start and how much you put in. So what I've done, the top half, it's actually 4 quadrants. So the top left of the graph, I show what the accumulated value would be up to age 18. So these are pre-tax values. I'll get into that in a second. So I used an 8% rate and a 10% rate of growth rate. Those super aggressive investors may think, well, Kirk, equities grow by 13 and 15%, right? Well, the answer is no. So I used 8 and 10, stick in what you want. And then I looked at it, if you start at age 0 for the child, age 5 or age 10, and then if you only do the 250 Dell program, the 1,000 Treasury, or what if you don't qualify for either, but you choose to put in the 5,000 each year for the first 18 years. So you got the numbers on the screen there. I'll let you look at them. But let's just focus on, let's say you qualify the 250. Kirk, I only plan to do the 250. My kid is 5 years old. Why bother? It's like, well, you'd bother because if it grows by 8%, it could grow to $680 when that kid is age 18. In today's purchasing power, I brought it back to today's dollars using 3% inflation. So that's the numbers on the right-hand side there. So $460. And so, again, better than a kick in the teeth, as some would say. So it's worth doing, even if it's just the free money. I also show other numbers, which you can look at, other rates of return. Again, the adding new money of your own. We'll talk about if that's wise or not, depending upon your situation. As I was putting this together, I thought, too, some of you may remember you might have gotten a paper like EE savings bond. One of your relatives bought you a savings bond when you were born. They kind of forgot about it. They're at your high school graduation, like, hey, I ran across this thing. Here you go. And that's pretty cool, right? You had this accumulated money. They may not have thought of a big deal back at the time, but over 18 years, it grows. And so don't underestimate the power of compounding here. So take a look at the table. It grows more than you think. So free money. So now question 7, is the contribution that you put in deductible, and is the money coming from the Treasury or the individual donor, is that considered taxable? So the answer is no to both, at least initially as the money goes in. So let's actually do the Treasury and the Dell and Dahlia programs first. They put the money in. You do not have to pay taxes on that when it goes in. So that's no taxes there. And if you contribute, if you choose to put in up to the 5,000, you do not get a deduction either. No to both. One thing that, let me see, there was one nuance here I want to point out. Oh, so the other thing I mentioned earlier with some of the employer programs, as I was reading this, as I understand it, some employers, if they wanted to, could open up a cafeteria plan, Section 125, similar to how HSAs work, where you can contribute money through there and get a deduction. It looks like that if you set up a Section 125, you could set it up so that an employer, if they do it, employees could, through that 125 program, contribute with pre-tax dollars into here. Something to watch. You're capped at $2,500 a year, but definitely very good, and that would change the economics as you look at this. So nothing that I'm aware of right now, but something to watch. So anyway, deductible and taxable, no going in. Question number 8. Don't worry, we only have, I think, 10 or 11 questions, so we're almost there. Question number 8. What is the tax treatment while the funds grow? And then later, when I take it out, what are the implications and any tax penalties? So think of this as a traditional IRA that you may be familiar with. So one, when the money is in there, it grows tax deferred. And I say deferred because there's a bill to pay on the way out. So during those 18 years, you're throwing money in, you got that initial seeding if you were eligible, all of that grows tax-free. This mutual fund or ETF is kicking off dividends, no taxes. When, and before that, do I talk about it later? No, so let's talk about it here. So before that, you cannot take any money out of this before age 18. So just be very aware if you are putting your own money, if bad things happen, an emergency comes up, sorry, it's locked down as it's currently written. So just be aware of that. But at age 18, you are now eligible if you want to take it out. However, just like a traditional IRA, if you do it before age 59 and a half, there's a 10% penalty plus what you take out is taxable, except for any pre-tax or free money contributions. So that's be aware of that. And so it comes out as ordinary income. And there are some exceptions of you can avoid the 10% penalty. Again, very similar. I think it's the same list actually as the rules for traditional IRAs. And so if, I guess that doesn't apply to me because I'm 60 now, but if you're 50 years old, you want to take money out of a traditional IRA, there are certain exceptions. Otherwise, you got to pay a 10% penalty. That same list applies to these accounts or is planned to apply to these accounts. When you take it out, though, you do pay taxes, and it's not just capital gains taxes, it's ordinary income. So that is, again, the one or a few negatives in these accounts. But when you take it out, all of that investment growth, and if you got, say, the $250 or the $1,000 from the Treasury or individual donors, that also is going to be taxable on the way out at that point. They're now an adult because they're 18 at their tax rate. And so be aware it does come out taxable, and it is ordinary income. So be aware of that. Those are the implications. Again, the 10% penalty, there are some exceptions. Again, some of the common ones I'll list here: birth or adoption of a child, if you have a disability, a disaster, but maybe a lot of people thinking here today, higher education is one of those qualified expenses. Be aware it's just the tuition there. It's different than 529s, which I'll talk about next. So that is an exception. But again, you still have to pay taxes on it. Again, not as favorable as a 529, which might be a good segue into what are some of those choices. Question number 9, what are some existing alternative accounts that you could use instead of Trump accounts? A lot. So basically, make sure you're aware of all of the vehicles you have at your disposal today. So obviously, if you're saving for yourself, you have your 1Ks, HSAs, IRAs, saving for the kids, specifically for college, you're talking 529s. You could also open up a taxable custodial brokerage account, or some people open up a minor IRA. Most of the time, it's a Roth IRA. So on my blog post, I'll mention briefly here 3 of those. How do they compare with a Trump account? 529 plans. And so if your intent is, I'm going to put in these money into the Trump account, intended for college savings. So one, I would argue that the 529 is a better choice. So one, some states allow a deduction for the money going in. Trump account does not. You get that same growth as it's growing, it's tax deferred. But if you use a 529 for qualified educational expenses, 0 taxes. Trump accounts, yeah, there's no 10% penalty, but you got to pay taxes. So two strikes against you. You have more investment flexibility. You can dial down the risk as the kids get older. More withdrawal flexibility. You can use them for K through 12, tuition only there. Higher education, i.e. college, you can use it for room and board. So just a lot more flexibility, et cetera, in a 529 over a Trump account. And not to mention, if you have excess funds left over, you can change a beneficiary, or you could even use up to $35,000 and transfer it into a Roth IRA over time, subject to different rules. I won't get into them today. Another choice that I think is better, custodian taxable brokerage account. So again, the same, there's no deduction going in on either side. And as a negative to this account, a taxable brokerage account, you do have to pay taxes as that investments are kicking off income, which you don't have to in the Trump account. However, one, you got a lot more flexibility with investment choices. And also, if you manage that fund properly, looking at long-term gains, buying tax-efficient vehicles, you can pretty much gain or realize a lot of that investment value in that more favorable capital gain tax treatment. So if you use a taxable account and you do it smartly, you can get it out at capital gains tax rate, which are always lower than ordinary income. So definitely, I'd say a win-win-win, other than, a win-win-win, I guess, on these taxable accounts versus a Trump account. And then definitely the flexibility on withdrawal. So if it is a custodial account, you can only take it out for the benefit of the child, but you can also, beyond age 18, they just have a lot more flexibility with withdrawals. And so it's just more flexible. And then finally, the minor IRAs, again, let's just assume it's a Roth IRA. For most people, again, how does it compare quickly here? So no deduction going in on either side, but when you take it out, a Roth comes out tax-free for that person, whereas the Trump accounts don't. Comes out as ordinary income. as one, you do have to have, the child does have to have taxable compensation. And so you're not going to be able to contribute to a minor Roth IRA when the kid is 5 years old or something. But again, a lot more investment choices, more flexibility on withdrawals, just better on that account. And then question 10. So bring it home, it says. So question 10, just final thoughts. Okay, Kirk, you've been rambling for 22 minutes here. What are your final thoughts? So like I mentioned at the beginning here, initially I thought, you know what? If your kid's born in those 4 years, go for it. Otherwise, don't bother. Now I'm going to say, if your kid is born in those 4 years, for sure, but also up to age 10, and if you live in a zip code that has a median income below 150,000, it's worth opening them up as well and getting that additional free money. Furthermore, as I mentioned, it's worth following announcements and development. So there could be more programs announced. There could be enhancements made to the program. So there's a lot more here than I would have realized when I started. So that's, I guess, major learning for me, good takeaway. So glad I did this blog post. Shout out to a client this week. They asked the question. So that was the final impetus for me to my topic of the month here. But otherwise, other than that, I do think in general, unless you get the free money, I don't believe it makes sense. Or there's other choices to use first for sure. So it's not a pound the table if you're not picking up that free money until you tap out, all those other choices. I gave you a few examples. Other than that, will people still use them? Sure, they could. So those people who've tapped everything out, they've done all they can, and they still love to have tax deferred growth with being aware of all the limitations with withdrawals and the tax implications. Definitely makes sense. You can go ahead and use them. And that table I showed earlier, if you contribute $5,000 each year, it grows 8% a year. And let's say you want to use it intended for like age 30 for like a down payment or something. In today's dollars, that could be close to $140,000. And so that's pre-tax numbers, so be aware of that. But again, I do believe that there are better choices first. But if you tap those out or want to have it, not going to stop anybody. Obviously, it's your money, your accounts. And then just a few other comments. I read a lot and listen to a lot of podcasts. And so I guess just briefly watch the developments in the programs. But one thing too, it's like, could this possibly be used for a solution or part of a solution to the Social Security problem? You've got, right now, we can't invest our Social Security money. We got young kids, we can invest it. If you put in restrictions, you can't use it until later in retirement. This could be a way, as part of it, to get some of that funding for getting past the funding issues that we have, for sure. And then also, too, the individual donors. Definitely, I think at everyone's hearts, most people are charitably inclined. They want to give to people, but it's kind of like they want good value, too. And so if they're looking at something they can give to a program, if it's this nebulous, call it government program, it's like, yeah, I could give my hard-earned money, but how are they going to use it? Where does it go? How much slippage and crap is going on? This here is a very clean, direct, I'm giving money to our young minds of the future in our nation. Let me sign up for that. So I think you are going to have more people signing up because it is a direct, clean investment in our future. So I do think that's powerful. I got a few other comments on the blog post, but I'll stop there and leave it at that. Like I said, a lot more here than I would have thought when I started writing this yesterday, but here I am. Hopefully that was helpful. And, if you're still with me, hang on. I guess, grab the free. At this point, I'm thinking, grab my Budweiser and how's my basketball brackets doing? It's the first day of March Madness today. So the full 64, I should say. One final shout out, Miami, Ohio made it to the big dance. And so they won last night. I'm pointing because Bree is an alum there. So congrats to them. And congrats to those who are enjoying the bracket and Trump accounts if you get them. All right, that's a wrap on today's topic. Thanks a lot. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Financial Translator. I hope this discussion helped clear up any confusion and will lead to more confident financial decisions. Thanks for your time, and be sure to check out all of our resources at pvwealthmgt.com. Until next time, go confidently.